Do you know that an incident from the police department has emerged that has left everyone shocked and puzzled? When a crime occurs, the police arrive at the scene to investigate. While the police were investigating one side of the case, on the other side, they were also complicating the case. But what if the police themselves start playing such mind games that even the sharpest minds get confused for a moment? Today's story is about such a conspiracy one that didn't let the dead stay dead, keeping them alive. Hello, dear friends. How are you? Today, we are discussing the Monika Yadav case. This story begins in India's capital, Delhi. There is a place called Mukherjee Nagar in Delhi, a very famous area considered a hub for UPSC aspirants. Most of the people living here are preparing for the UPSC exams. In 2020, a girl came here, like many others, to prepare for UPSC. Her name was Monika Yadav, but those who knew her called her Mona. She was 28 years old and originally from Bulandshahr. In 2020, she came to Mukherjee Nagar, Delhi. The following year, in September 2021, she stopped calling her family. The calls ceased on the 8th or 9th of September. Initially, it wasn't strange, as Mona would sometimes not call her sister or mother due to her busy schedule preparing for such a big exam. Mona's father was in the police department and had passed away in 2011 due to an accident. At home, there was her mother and 3 sisters, with Mona being the youngest. A few days passed, and when Mona didn't call her mother or sister, her sister, who was a school teacher, called Mona herself just to check in. But Mona didn't pick up the phone. Her sister thought maybe she was busy studying and would call back once she saw the missed call. However, a few more days passed, and still, Mona didn't call back. The sister informed their mother, and now both were genuinely worried. They tried calling Mona again, but she still didn't answer. Mona had a friend in Delhi named Surendra Rana. Mona was a constable in the Delhi police, and in 2014, she had joined the duty in the PCR unit, where Surendra Rana worked as a driver. He was also a head constable. Since they worked in the same unit, they became friends. Surendra was 12 to 15 years older than Mona, and she used to call him Dad, considering him like a father. Surendra also referred to her as his daughter. While working as a constable, Mona had taken the Uttar Pradesh Police Sub-Inspector exam, passed it, and was about to become a sub-inspector and up. However, she did not join the duty. She was confident, and during her constable duties, she was preparing for the sub-inspector exam, which required a lot of running around. Even though she didn't have much time to prepare, she still managed to clear the sub-inspector exam. She thought that if she could prepare for UPSC with full dedication, she could clear that too. She had a dream of becoming an IPS officer since childhood and was very bright in her studies. In 2020, Mona resigned from her constable job and moved to Mukherjee Nagar to prepare for UPSC. She stayed in a PG and continued her preparation. In Delhi, her good friend Surendra was there to guide and help her, acting as a local guardian. Surendra's house was in Alipur, Delhi, and since he was a good friend, Mona would invite him to her family functions, where Surendra was well received by her family. In September 2021, when Mona stopped calling her family, her sister called Surendra and informed him that Mona was not answering her phone, and it had been 2 to 3 weeks since they last spoke. Hearing this, Surendra was also surprised as he hadn't been in touch with Mona for the past several days. Due to being busy with duty, he hadn't noticed the lack of communication. Surendra assured Mona's sister that he would check on her after duty. He went to the PG where Mona was staying, but she wasn't there. After inquiring around, it was found that she hadn't been seen since the 8th or 9th of September. Her books and belongings were still in the room. By now, it had been a month since Mona went missing. Surendra informed Mona's sister that Mona wasn't at the PG and asked her to come to Delhi quickly. On October 20th, 2021, Mona's sister came from Bulandshahr to Mukherjee Nagar, Delhi, and met Surendra. Together, they went to the Mukherjee Nagar police station to report that a girl named Mona had been missing for a month. A report was filed, and an investigation began. The police took statements from Mona's family about when they last spoke to her and where she was last seen. Head Constable Surendra Rana stayed in touch with the investigating officer and kept updating the family. Surendra would often visit Mona's family to console them, as they were grieving the disappearance of their young daughter. Since Surendra was in the police, he had many contacts and informants. One day, Surendra received information from an informant and called Mona's family to share that Mona was in love with a boy named Arvind and had gone somewhere with him. This news shocked her family. They couldn't believe that Mona would do something like this without informing them, as she always shared everything with them. Why hadn't she mentioned her love to them? And why did she leave without telling anyone? When the police found out, they said that the girl had run away with her lover and was not missing. They assured the family that there was nothing to worry about and that she would return home soon. As a result, the police slowed down their investigation, while Mona's family remained worried about her well-being. Weeks later, a voice message from Mona's number was sent to one of her relatives. In the message, Mona said that she was fine and would come home soon. A few days later, Arvind called one of Mona's relatives and said that he and Mona were going to Rohtak, that they had gotten married. But his family was against the marriage, and they were being pursued. He assured the family not to worry, and that they would bring Mona home in 10 to 12 days. When the relative asked to speak to Mona, Arvind made excuses, saying she was too scared to talk, but that she was fine. The family informed head constable Surendra, who got an address of a hotel. The police weren't doing much, so Mona's sister and Surendra went to the hotel to investigate. They found that a room was registered in Mona's name, and her ID proof, an Aadhaar card, had been used. The room was searched, and a copy of one of Mona's documents was found, confirming that she had stayed there. However, by the time they arrived, she was already gone. The police were also monitoring Mona's bank account, and her ATM card was used at an ATM near the hotel. CCTV footage showed a man withdrawing money while wearing a helmet, believed to be Arvind. Money was withdrawn from Mona's account, and online UP payments were also being made. Surendra eventually managed to speak to Mona on the phone, using her number. He told her that her family was very worried and asked her to speak to her mother, who wasn't feeling well. Mona refused, saying she was fine where she was and didn't want to go home and spoil her mood. Surendra recorded the conversation and sent it to Mona's family. It was clear that Mona didn't want to come home yet, but she assured that she was fine. Around the same time, Surendra received another piece of information from his informant, a vaccination certificate showing that Mona had received the COVID vaccine. He sent this to her family, who were relieved that she was safe and had even been vaccinated. Time passed, and Mona and Arvind kept moving from place to place. Between 2021 and 2023, there were 5 instances where Mona's family received calls from Arvind, saying they were in places like Mussoorie, Rishikesh, Punjab, Haryana, and Dehradun. Whenever they found out where Mona was, Surendra and Mona's sister would go there, only to find that she had just left. At one point, they even tracked her to Karnataka. 2 years had passed by then, and Mona's sister, who was a school teacher, kept running around trying to find her. She even spent nights at the Mukherjee Nagar police station, waiting for news, only to return to Bulandshahr the next morning to resume her duties. Surendra kept pushing the police to investigate properly, but nothing substantial happened. By July 2023, it had been almost 2 years since Mona disappeared. Mona's sister was frustrated, knowing that Arvind had promised to return in 10 to 12 days, but they were still on the run. She wondered why Mona never tried to contact her family, despite knowing they would never be against her love. The evidence of Mona's presence, such as Arvind's calls and her stays at various hotels, was there, but they still couldn't find her. Finally, Mona's sister shared her thoughts with their mother and decided to go to Delhi to speak directly to the commissioner. In July, during a public hearing, she narrated the entire story to the commissioner, explaining how they hadn't spoken to or seen Mona in 2 years, despite getting calls from her husband, Arvind, and finding evidence of her presence in various places. Khurja police had filed a missing report, but nothing had been done. The commissioner found the case unusual, especially since it involved a policeman's daughter. He ordered the crime branch to investigate. The crime branch of Delhi police launched an investigation, starting from scratch by gathering details from the missing report filed at the Mukherjee Nagar police station. They found out about Arvind and how he had been contacting Mona's family and even making UP transactions. They started tracking Arvind's phone, which led them to Punjab, Haryana, and Dehradun. They reached places where he had stayed with Mona, but every time, the couple had just left, always ahead of the police. The crime branch began investigating the number of people who had been in touch with Mona before she went missing. Mona's sister received another call from Arvind, saying they were in Rishikesh and would return soon, but he couldn't be reached again after that call. The crime branch traced a number used to make a UP transaction from Mona's account, leading them to the right location. The crime branch reached the place, apprehending the person on the spot. The officer asked him, "Are you Arvind?" The man removed his helmet, revealing himself as a middle-aged man, well-built. But he wasn't Arvind. He was Surendra Rana, Mona's dad. He was the one who had been pretending to be Arvind for 2 years. Surendra was arrested, and during interrogation, he revealed that he was the one who had been contacting Mona's family, keeping them in the dark. He admitted to taking Mona to various places, even hotels, and withdrawing money from her account. But he never told the family the truth. He said Mona was alive and would be found soon. However, the crime branch didn't find any trace of Mona. Surendra maintained that she was alive and that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. The investigation continued, and the police searched Surendra's house and belongings. Eventually, they discovered that Mona had been killed by Surendra. It was revealed that Surendra had been keeping her body in a suitcase, hiding it in his house. He had used her bank account to make it seem like she was still alive, while he took her body from place to place, pretending she was with him. Surendra was trying to mislead everyone, even the police, for nearly 2 years. This case highlights the dark side of human nature and how even those we trust the most can betray us in unimaginable ways. The police had to go through an extensive investigation, unraveling the web of lies spun by someone who was supposed to protect and guide Mona. This story is a reminder that things are not always as they seem, and sometimes the truth is hidden behind layers of deception. In the end, the truth did come out, but it took time and persistence to uncover the reality of what had happened to Monika Yadav.